and we have a recording. Super. Good morning, everyone. Thanks a lot for joining the session. As I was saying, we've been doing this 5-part series. Today is the fourth penultimate session of the 5-part series around Industry 4.0. We started with a panel discussion, which kind of set the context about what is Industry 4.0, why is it important. We had some very eminent panelists talk about how the potential that Industry 4.0 has from transforming your business perspective. And subsequent to that, we've been deep diving into one particular area of business where Industry 4.0 can have a significant impact. So the first one that we did was intelligent asset management, where we spoke about how Industry 4.0 technologies can actually help you maintain your assets in peak conditions without ensuring that there are no breakdowns, also ensuring that there are no unrequired or non-required maintenance activities being carried upon on them, because every one of the activities in terms of maintenance actually results in shutdown as well, downtime as well. So that's what we spoke about in the first session. The first deep dive. The second deep dive we had was around building intelligent products, where we spoke about how you can how customers are actually using some of the Industry 4.0 technologies to kind of create new business models, to create new revenues, to even save lives. We spoke about the example of a bridge which sends out signals when the bridge is unsafe for usage, which then helps the company which maintains the bridge to kind of come, look at it, stop the traffic, maintain it, and then re-allow traffic to flow through it. We spoke about how someone can actually move from selling boilers to selling hot air as a service and things like that. So that was building intelligent products. So today we are talking about how Industry 4.0 technologies can actually empower your people. Not just empower your people to make better decisions, but also ensure that they have a safe and secure environment in which to work in. If you are anyone that I speak about, everyone that I talk to is talking about the crunch of people leaving their organizations, especially the IT organizations. The opportunities outside are humongous. A lot of people are leaving. What can you do to make their lives better inside of your organization so that retention becomes better as well? So today we have Vipin. He's been a strong supporter for this initiative right from the start. He heads innovation and advisory practice for SAP in India and Southeast Asia. You know him as erstwhile global CIO of Welspun. So he's been in both the boats, so to say. So over to you, Vipin, if I can ask you to kind of take it up and
thank you.
This conversation ahead.
Thanks, Mukesh. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for the time that you're giving us today. I hope we will be able to make it worthwhile. And at the end of this session, we will probably get into a question answer kind of a time where we can discuss this a little more. I would like to hear from you on what your views are and what is it that you are doing in your organization on this. A large part of what I'm going to be saying is based on my own journey, my own experiences while working away from SAP, other than SAP experiences, because that was largely in manufacturing processing kind of an organization, Welspun, like Mukesh just mentioned. So I was the global CIO there, and I have been able to wear my innovator hat and have been able to get a patent on tracking and tracing of cotton from Egypt to the finished products that Welspun used to make. This came out of a sort of a tragedy that happened, and which is where we started thinking of how we can avert this tragedy, how this should not happen anytime in the future. What has happened is fine. We learn with it, we change with it, and then we don't let it happen in the future. Something similar is what I'm going to be presenting here today. How do we do things where we are averting the tragedy to the human life, which is probably the most important, most valuable asset that an organization can possibly have, that is going to add value to the organization as well. Now, here are a few scenarios that I have experienced myself. in one of these scenarios, this is at one of the plants in Gujarat. A person was doing some maintenance work, electrical maintenance work, and he was up on a pole. And this is a slightly remote area, and therefore, not many people were. Yeah.
Vipin, we are only able to see your first slide. I think you're on slideshow, but we can't see the slideshow.
Okay. Sorry. Now can you see it?
The first slide. So you're still on the first
Yeah.
slide, right? Industry 4.0
Yeah. I'm
health
still on the
sector.
first slide. I've not moved forward. Okay.
Okay.
So sorry about that. So this person is doing some electrical maintenance. He has climbed up a pole and he's doing certain things that are required to be done to restore electrical connection. Suddenly, for some reason, he experiences a current, and people later said that this might be a pseudo current where you don't actually get that current. You don't actually get the shock, but you feel that you've got the shock because of the place that you are in. He falls down from there, and since there is nobody around, he sustains a lot of injury. It takes us some time to identify where he is and then take him to the hospital, but then it is too late by then. Scenario number two, where there is a pipe manufacturing plant in US that Welspun has, and a worker tries to cross a certain line where while a huge heavy pipe, where you can walk into that pipe, that kind of a size, and therefore that kind of weight is moving towards him on a roller bit, but he tries to do a shortcut. So he jumps across that track, and suddenly he gets caught between two pipes, the one that was stationary and the one that was traveling into him. It Because it was a plant situation, there were people who were able to help him avert a tragedy there. The third scenario is when if you have ever seen or visited the Anjar facility of Welspun. This is also a textile manufacturing facility. So there are 3 shifts there, and each shift there are about 5,000 people moving in and 5,000 people moving out. So some people, these 5,000 people are actually signing into the job, and 5,000 people who are signing out of the job, showing, ending their shift and then coming out. It took them about 45 minutes to let these people come in, mark their attendance, get through the security checks, and then go in and start working. Now, because it is a pretty big area that we are talking about, they would take anywhere between 10 to 15 minutes to from the gate to walk to their location where they're supposed to be operating, which means that about 45, 50, or maybe an hour was wasted time. There was nothing they were doing which was productive, which was adding to the output or the value of the organization. So that set me thinking, how is it that we can improve all of these pieces, reduce this 45, 50 minutes to maybe 4, 5 minutes if possible. And that is again where we got sort of thinking on how to do it. So what I'm going to talk about are some of these pieces. Uh, like I just mentioned, and I'm trying to summarize the conversation I just had with all of you. What is it that the business wants? They want to ensure that there is worker safety. They want to ensure that we are real time aware of what the worker is doing, or what the worker is not in a health hazardous condition. We need to all the time demonstrate the compliance to the rules. Now, here again, another scenario that comes to my mind is Welspun caters to the likes of IKEA and Walmart, etc., and they have very, very strict policies as far as the human aspect of the whole work is concerned. If there are, if there is a break that you need to give after every 5 days, you need to give that break, and they do that audit when they come to your plant. And if they find that this has not been adhered to, then obviously there are penalties put in. They put the organization in a red zone, and if that compliance is not done in the next visit, they probably rescind their orders and stop business with them. So these people are so fanatically passionate about these pieces. So you need to be compliant with all the rules that are the law of the land. How do we help them make better decisions, and how do we get them to improve efficiency, deliver more, with less effort, and sort of then therefore curtail costs. So both the top line and the bottom line goes up for the organization. Now, this is what we are going to be talking about in today's discussion. What we are going to show you is geofencing. How do you put in variables so that you can monitor? How are you exposed to the environment, and how do you contain that exposure? If there are any deviations, rules, etc., which are getting flouted, you know that in real time, and therefore you avoid those things to happen. Notifications coming in if there are any challenges that the workers are facing. If, let's say, for an example, if there this person who had climbed on a pole to do some maintenance, had he been wearing one of these devices, he would have been spotted and in real time, and he would have been taken in the right time at the right time to the hospital, and his life could have been saved. How do I collect all of this information and then put it into one single piece of dashboard so that I can know and I can see and I can react to whatever is happening to my workers to keep them safe, compliant, and more efficient and productive. Now, to continue with this sensors journey, what we are looking to is that if I am able to embed a sensor in their helmet or in their jacket, safety jackets that they wear, then I will be able to find out what is happening to them. So we put in a sensor into the helmet. We put another sensor into the jacket. That safety belt also had a sensor, which was actually a light sensor. So if you wear this safety belt, then the light would get blocked and there will be no beeping that will happen. But if that belt is open, or you have not worn that belt, then there is a beeper that sort of sounds off to say this belt is right now not in the place where it should be. Now, what are these sensors doing? So we actually created a cube of 1.5 inches by 1.5 inches, and this was then embedded into the helmet and the jacket. What was this device measuring? So it was measuring the speed of the person, in all three axes, which means he's traveling too fast horizontally on a road. He's moving up, which means he's climbing a certain thing. It could be a cliff, it could be a pole, whatever, but we know what is he doing. It would also measure the temperature, light, noise, oxygen deficiency, the environmental parameters, carbon monoxides, etc., and then send it back into the hub for us to analyze what is happening to this individual person. With a GPS sensor, we could find out his location at any point in time, and we could see him on a Google map when he is moving or doing certain work. His bio vitals, meaning his heart rate and body temperature, etc., were also being sensed. Now, what we have done now is we have taken care of his person, which means that the heart rate, body temperature, etc. We know where he is located, and we know the environment around him and what is he possibly trying to do or is doing on the job. So these are the pieces that that one single 1.5 by 1.5 embedded into helmet or the jacket was able to give us all of these data. Now, what do we do with this data? If there is an excess or a reduction beyond a certain upper limit and lower limit, then there is a alert that sounds to say that this particular person standing or working in this particular zone has got he has climbed up and he has not moved for certain time, or he's suddenly falling down, or he has been in a position without moving for 30 minutes, 40 minutes, whatever. His temperature is rising, his heartbeat is rising, etc. And therefore we could possibly alert his co-workers to say that you are standing next to him, please see that he gets attention, he is brought into safe zone, and therefore his life is saved. So all of this coming into a hub, and analysis being done, and then actions being taken which are relevant for that kind of an this thing. So you alert the employee to say your speed is too high, or your temperature is going up, or your heart rate is going up, you need to rest, you need to slow down, whatever the case might be. A call goes to the emergency center so that the medical facility, if required, is immediately made available, and people around him are also alerted so that the first response reaction can possibly take place. Now, all of this, if you look at our practices or practices in US, Europe, etc., where all of these are very important. There are incidents created which are categorized in various categories to say, was this hazardous, was this life threatening, or whatever, and therefore you have now got a complete analysis of the activity that is happening, the hazards that are there, the alerts that are being raised, and therefore uh, with an analysis of this kind of a data, you can easily determine whether we are within the norms, are we compliant, are we saving lives, are we putting people in a hazardous zone, and if we are, because that is the nature of the business, then are we keeping them safe? Are we doing enough for the safety of those people, for the health of those people? Right. Normally, these would be used on maintenance workers, mine workers, mines, especially the undercast mines, worker safety for of any kind, and driver safety also. If he's nodding off, then we know that he's nodding off, and therefore can probably ask him to, sort of stop his journey, take some rest, and then move forward. Now, all of this is not just a standalone piece of technology that we put into place. We also were picking up all of this data and bringing it back into the SAP ERP or S4HANA and putting it into the EHNS module so that we have a track record, we can do analytics on top of it and improve or optimize the situation that the worker is in. Uh, there are also certain rules, regulations that we need to follow, like we said earlier. And these rules and regulations can be built in so that we are in a position to monitor whether we have flouted those rules or not. So if you look at the dashboard for the connected worker, this is how it looks like. Now it is giving me the risk monitor. It is giving me a real-time monitor of this thing. What are my tasks, possible tasks that I need to do to improve the situation? And then there is the master data piece where you are maintaining what are the hazards, what are the upper limits, lower limits, what are the jobs that are uh, inherently hazardous, and therefore more focus needs to be brought in there, and also manage workers if they need medical attention or any other such facility. So normally what we do is that we would create exposure limit for every single thing. So it could be noise, it could be stress, it could be the fatigue, it could be the heart rate, etc. So all of these are put into place using these forms, and then the monitoring starts. The sensors are there to pick up that data, and we are constantly in real time monitoring and ascertaining that they are within a certain upper and lower limit. If this thing exceeds as it has done here, there would be an alert sent out to say the speed is too high or the temperature is too high, whatever the case might be. And that is an alert sent to, like I said, showed you in the previous slide, to multiple people close to him, people who are monitoring him, people who are sitting in the health center or the first response teams, etc. That is when we have a complete set of data to determine how did the day go by, or was there any incident that is to be reported, or was there any hazardous activity that was done by the employee. So once we have done that, we have now got all the details to maintain, monitor, and help the employee stay safe, stay compliant, and adhere to the rules. When they are safe, when they don't feel free, don't feel the stress, when they are devoid of the feeling that there might be a hazard, that might be something that might happen to him, then obviously the productivity jumps up, because he's in a good state of mind. He knows he's taken care of. He knows that nothing is going to happen to him. If something were to happen to him, there are people who are on standby to support him, to come to him immediately as and when required. So so we have discussed putting in of sensors, which is the IoT part of it, analyzing, monitoring that data, and giving a response. So this is an entire cycle where we are responding, getting insights, and correcting things. So over a period of time, things would get better as we respond to the exceptions that keep coming up in the organizational work. Next up, the example that I gave you of 5,000 people moving in and out of the facility, um, which is um, which is where they were taking about 50 minutes of time that I narrated about. How do we improve that timing? How do we reduce it to 4 or 5 minutes? The other part of the story also was when we started doing this, there was another requirement that came in from the shop floor managers to say, you are, Vipin, only talking about the 50 minutes they're spending between the gate and their workstation. Once they come here, I normally have to roster them. I need to tell them what is the work we are expecting them to do, which might take another 15-20 minutes. So effectively, about 75 minutes of the productive time is getting utilized in things that are not productive. So how do you help me with that? So this is what we configured, and this is something that is working now on at various organizations. What we are saying here is this, that we are giving a identity card to the employee. All employees have an identity card. We are putting in a BLE chip or a sensor or an RFID, depending on what might be the use case. We are putting it there. And this sensor or chip, like the ID card, also has the blood group, the department, the name, the address, the contact details, etc., of the person. Now, it is now morning time, and he is supposed to now go for start his journey for work. Let us assume that there is a company bus which is going to pick him up in remote areas like Anjar. This is a normal practice. Even here in Mumbai, a lot of organizations pick up their employees and take them to the workplace, the offices, etc. So let us assume that it is morning time. He has worn his uniform. He has put in his ID card, and he walks out to the bus stop where his bus is supposed to pick him up. Now here, as soon as he embarks the bus, as soon as he sets foot in the bus, there is an alert sent to the shop floor manager of this particular person to say that this person has now embarked the bus, and in probably 30 minutes of time, he'll be at the gate, at the factory gates, and then maybe another whatever time it takes. We are trying to reduce it to 5 minutes from 50 minutes. He will be available for you to get him to work. So now the shop supervisor or the floor manager now has an intimation of how many people are coming in, how many people with what kind of capabilities are coming in, and how many people he can deploy so that his gangs of doing things properly for that particular shift is complete and is available for utilization or for productive work as soon as he comes in. So now he can do this rostering piece, get the duties assigned, and be ready for this person to come in. And as soon as he comes in, he knows what needs to be done, and then go in for that productive session of his day. Now we have monitored the employee embarking the bus, entering the bus, and coming in at the factory gate, for an example. Now, from here, the other challenge that we are now, going to address is how do 5,000 people enter the gates, and 5,000 people exit the gate without having to take those 45-50 minutes. So what we did was, with the sensors that were already available for them in the ID card, we created a geofence. So there are no gates, there are no turntables, there are no palm readers, there are no thumbprint readers, etc. They just simply walk into a space. And as they walk into a space, because of the sensors that we had put on the ID cards, and we had done geofencing, we now knew in real time that this person had entered the main gate of the organization, of the factory facility. From here, he needs to walk into the shop where he's working, or the shed where he's working, or the premises where he's going to be working. So the attendance has now been marked because there is a geofence, and because there is a person wearing that sensor coming into that geofence. He does not need to now wait for any thumbprints or face scan, or physical scan, or signing up or register, or doing going through the turntable, because he needs to flash a card and then allow the or operate the turntable to for him to move on the other side. Because none of this was done, people are just simply walking past that geofence, and the attendance is getting registered, which means that whatever time was being taken is now brought down to zero. uh, there would be there would be challenges like tailgating, etc., being done, for which we knew that we could read these sensors and identify if there were two sensors moving too close to each other, or two sensors put in one person's body. So we could know all of that, and we could then identify that this person has walked in with two sensors at the same time, which means that he is probably marking an attendance for other person as well. Which means that we are now in a position to mark this attendance, and without wasting time, like I said, and then he moves on to the shop floor. Now, this distance between the factory gate and the plant where he's going to be doing this work is, let's say, 5 minutes. We can't avoid that, we can't reduce that, but as soon as he reaches there, there are people that the job is ready for him to be sort of being uh, ready to become productive for that particular day, which now means that he, instead of that 45 minutes, we have reduced that time to 5 minutes, and we have identified people coming in. Now this facility that we created then got extended to many other pieces. Now, what are those pieces? These are extensions of the situations that people will find themselves in a factory. And what are those pieces? So the data for payroll now is getting collected at the level of the geofence, right? And then this data is ready to be transferred without any more work on it. It is ready to be transferred to the payroll department for it to be able to manage that payroll. And if the person is doing an overtime, that also is visible in the incoming and the outgoing scans that are happening. People are normally given free food or subsidized food, etc., in the plant, and therefore, when he walks into a canteen, we now know exactly when he ate the food, and therefore we can either charge him or mark him at least present for the available for the food that he ate, or the time that he spent in the canteen. Uh, a third piece started then coming into play, where some of the organizations bosses wanted to find out how much time is he spending next to his machine, or the workplace that he's supposed to be working on. This is where uh, you know we started putting in sensors in the machines to find out how close he has been to the machine, and for what period of time. So what is his actual productive time, and what is the time that he is sort of wandering here or there, or is not focusing on the machine or the work, and also combined that with the data that the machine itself is generating. So for an example, if the machine has broken down, stopped for certain reason, and the time between that stoppage and the starting is too huge, the work has not started because the person who's supposed to do this work, the operator of that machine, is not available in vicinity. Therefore, it is taking more time for him to react to this thing, is now getting calculated, and we know that this time has been a waste of productivity. Therefore, how do you take corrective measures so that this time gets time becomes productive, and time becomes something that is adding value to the organization? So these sensors then started, sort of telling us how much time is actually required. Focused time is required by this person on the machine. And another analysis as an offshoot of this was that can he possibly operate two machines then? And this then experiment started where we put in some of the workers to operate two machines because we exactly knew how much time they were needed for a particular machine. So this started these people started handling two machines, and we found that this was going good. There was no stoppage, unnecessary, waste of time in monitoring these machines, or when they were stopped, the person could immediately attend to both those machines simultaneously, which then led to a third machine coming into play to say, let us see if that also can be possibly done. So can he possibly handle three machines at the same time? That also sort of got successful. And instead of handling one machine, sorry, uh, workers started handling three machines. uh, After this, we found that the productivity was reducing because there is a distance between these machines. There is a reaction time, and therefore the gain out of getting him to work on fourth machine was now diminishing, and therefore it became a standard practice to handle three machines by the same person. Now, what is this doing? Uh, Here, the productivity per person is improving, and therefore your cost per person, per ton of whatever you're manufacturing is going down. And when this is going down, obviously your top line, bottom line is also uh, improving and increasing. Um, Obviously, and needless to say, we have discussed this earlier, the safety factor for these people also was taken care of. Now, we have in the series that we have done and practically on the shop floor also, what we were able to do was digitize or sensorize the machines so that we get information from the machine. We have been able to sensorize the worker. We are now aware of what he's doing and where he is and what time is he taking, what action is he taking. So now if we combine these two pieces, actually three sets of data. One is the process data coming from the machine. Second is the person data coming from this sensor that we have put into his identity card. And third is the product data, the data which is generated to say that now this product has been manufactured to the levels or to the quality that is required. It has been heated to a certain temperature, or it has been passed through the processes, etc. Now, when we combine these three data, what is it that we are getting? What we get is a very, very complete picture of how things are happening and where are the gaps. And this is where I would like to, narrate to you another example, uh, which which resulted in a reduced capex for the organization. Now, what is it that we did? Is that now I have a sensor on the person. Like I said, the machines are already sensorized. We know when it is operating, when it is not operating. If there is a breakdown, we know what is the breakdown that has happened, and how much time has been taken to correct that breakdown. Now, with this data combined, uh, there was a proposal from the team to say that we need to improve or increase the capacity in view of the orders that are pending and the time that we are taking to fulfill those orders. It would mean that our customers would not be happy because we are very, very likely to delay the delivery to them. So let us get into a larger capex, increase the capacity, put in new machines, put in new people to create and manufacture the pieces that we need to deliver. When this proposal came in, and on the other side we had this data coming in from these three sources, we started monitoring to say you are right now utilizing only 35% of the capacity, although the machine is operating for the entire time. Either it is productive or non-productive, it is doing something or the other for the entire time, but the productivity as per the OEM guidelines is only 35%. Now, where is that remaining 65% time going? Right? So we started putting this data together and found that there were there were failures that were happening. the machine was getting stopped either for reasons which are controllable or for reasons that are not controllable. What were the controllable reasons? That the person is not available. There is no person available near the machine to handle the breakdown that has happened or to efficiently operate what is the operation happening at that particular machine. This is a controllable impact, right? There was another controllable reason that there is no raw material available, so the machine cannot operate right now. The third one could have been was that the accessories or the consumables required for that machine are not available. They have been consumed completely, and somebody has gone to pick them up, or somebody has given a phone call to somebody to deliver that material, although and has stopped the machine. Now, the uncontrollable ones was that the machine has encountered a breakdown. There is nothing anybody can do about it, and somebody from the maintenance department needs to come in and change whatever has broken down. Right? And similar other uncontrollable pieces were there. We started to address the controllable pieces because we had the data to say that the operator was away for an hour for lunch, and therefore this machine was not operational, was not productive. So we sort of staggered the lunch times, and therefore there was a person available at the machine for all the period that is required. There was no raw material available. That was addressed by ensuring that the planning gives the raw material at the proper time. And now that we have the sensor, we can see it on the screen. We should be aware 10 minutes, 15 minutes before the raw material finishes, and therefore deliver it in right time to the machine so that it does not need to stop. For the uncontrollable part, we have discussed this in the earlier sessions, a couple of sessions back. We started doing the predictive maintenance piece. Now we were able to see when a certain part was not behaving properly, or the machine was not behaving properly. It was exceeding or either the upper limit or was breaching the lower limit. And when such things happened, we would take the machine into shutdown, not breakdown, and correct that immediately when there was a non-productive zone that was there between change of shifts or whatever that case might be. Ultimately, we were able to increase the productivity by a good 50%, which means that we were now from 35%, we had come to about 70-75%. Why? Because we were able to consolidate the data that was available for the man, the machine, and the product, and therefore bring into light failures or gaps that we could easily fill and make everybody more productive. So basically, this, along with now today's fact that we need to be more sustainable, we need to be more productive, the sector can now, like we have discussed again in the past this thing, and we are going to discuss in the last session as well, is that we can bring a huge impact in all of these things, putting this data together, analyzing it, monitoring it, and not just reacting on what has happened in the past, but also forecasting and predicting what might happen in the future. And if this needs to be corrected, then we correct it in the right time. Mukesh, that is all I wanted to talk about in this session. We are open for questions now.
Thank you so much, Vipin, for taking us through the session. Anyone, if you have any question, you can either put them on the chat or unmute yourself and ask your question. Alternately, maybe I can kickstart with a question of my own.
Yeah.
So everything that we spoke about today, Vipin, was from the perspective of making sure that the employees are safe, so that they can focus not necessarily on their safety, but on the productivity that of their own personal productivity, right?
Yeah.
So my question, or rather not a question, but a point of discussion is, how can having all of this sensor data help employees not just in being more productive, but also make better decisions, not necessarily from their health and safety perspective, but from the overall organizational capability building or productivity perspective.
Yes. So, see, like I was saying, there are three sets of data that we have now available. And this data, when a human being has, an operator has in front of him, he would be able to take better decisions. Now, what does that mean? This means that he has, let's say, foreseen that there are some parameters which are not within control on the machine, which means either the machine is going to fail, or if it is the product related data or the operations related data, then the product is not going to be good. It will fail the quality test. Earlier, what would have happened is that this would get produced, taking the entire time that is required to produce it, taking all the resources that are required to produce it, utilizing all the money that is required to produce it, and then post facto there would be a quality check, and somebody would reject it to say this is not a good quality, rework it or reject it. Now what is happening is that we have the real-time information on all of these pieces. So if there is something that is going to happen, like I said, either the machine is going to fail, or the product is not going to be of the right quality, then these can be stopped right there, and then without having to sort of waste the raw material, the time, the resources, and the money to completely produce it and then reject it. Right. So now we are stopping it in real time, correcting the situation, and then moving forward without having to waste all of that time and money that I was talking about. So that is point number one. Point number two is, all of this data is also giving us something we called a golden batch, which means that for a certain product, under a certain conditions, we are now getting uh, a historical data to say if you operate this machine at these parameters, and if your raw material is sort of processed at these parameters, then you are going to get the maximum possible productivity. And now, because we have that knowledge, because we know that there is a golden batch and what were the parameters, the operator can set it, set the machine to those parameters, and obviously for every single time he could get that most optimized golden batch for production. That is the second thing. Third is, you need to keep maintaining the machine if you need to get productivity, also products that are good in quality. uh, the sensor data that we again discussed in last few sessions would help us find out when we need to stop the machine, or and sort of correct it, maintain it, grease it, oil it, or whatever, change certain parts, repair certain parts, which is again where you are getting an alert before time from the data to help take a decision or on whether to operate or not. At a larger scale, if you look at it, you can plan your production for that day, because you know that a particular machine needs maintenance and it won't be productive for, let's say, first half of the day. Therefore, you now exactly know what kind of resources to put in. So maintenance would come in for the first half, do the maintenance, and this machine would be available only probably in the second half for production. So that planning also can then be very, very streamlined and tight from that. So those are some of the things that are sort of utilized to help employees take the right decisions when they are operating in an environment.
Leads to two follow-up questions. I mean, I'll continue to ask questions as if nobody else raised their hand, or unmute yourself and ask your questions. So I have a lot of questions. There is a question on the chat. What challenges do you foresee in terms of adoption, implementation, at technical and organizational level? And is there any legal angle attached to this as an obstacle as well from a privacy perspective?
Okay, perfect. So I have encountered this question as the CIO. First thing, implementation at a technical and organizational level. So technically, and I'll first talk about the change management, the organizational piece. Uh, I found that whenever the top level of the organization was convinced that this should be put in, uh, it became easier to talk about this, to create the technology, get the investments required, etc. But you can bring in the rocket science to solve a problem, But until and unless these people who are going to use it are not convinced, they are they are never going to use it, and that technology would lie useless there, right? So in Welspun's case, what we started doing was, the moment we decided that this is a new project that is going to come in, for an example, that we are going to put in sensors in their ID card, and change the way they mark attendance. uh, we started talking about it with the workers, right? So telling them that, this is what we are thinking of doing. What do you think is going to be the problems that you will face, or is this going to help you, get better at productivity, make more productivity, go home early because you are finishing the job or in time, etc. And that is where people were aware that there was such thing coming in, and because we were getting feedback from them, they virtually became a part of this entire project, which is where they thought this was their project and not something that has been pushed down their throat right from the top. So that was one thing. Um, uh, from the organizational change management, there is a specific incident I would like to mention here. One of the blue collared workers who was handling material, unloading and loading of the material was happening with him, said that the technology that you are bringing in is going to kill my livelihood, and you are going to kick me out of the organization probably in a month's time. You tell me, how am I going to feed the four people I have in my family? So this became a slightly emotional piece, right? Because this person thinks that I am working towards kicking him out of the organization, and he'll be homeless, foodless, and his family is going to suffer. Now, this guy was not in a position to even read or write his name, and therefore he thought these equipment that have been brought in, he would not be able to operate. So we took him into a separate classroom kind of a session. We handed over the device to him, started telling him slowly, one bit at a time, of what he needs to do, how he needs to handle it. By the time we were 10 days into that classroom session, he was feeling a little bit more comfortable on this thing, and we then put him on the shop floor, and whatever he was doing in 12 hours, he was able to complete in 8 9 hours of time. And this time slowly reduced, so that he was able to come in at the right time and go home at the right time. So that impact, can be brought in. People can be, convinced that there is something in this whole new thing for them, and therefore they should adopt it. So this is the change management part of it. Uh, Technology part. Today, technology is, available in abundance. You can name a certain problem statement, and there are ways to solve those problem statements. So I don't think technology is the barrier. It is the organizational change management that might be the barrier, the behavioral piece that might be a barrier. Now, from
So
the
if I
legal
may,
angle, yeah, sorry, yes, go on, please.
sorry, on that exact point, someone told me once very wisely that if you start from the intention of helping people, uh, the chances of them understanding that and going along with you is that much more easier. And if you start from the position of, how do I purely look at numbers, efficiency, and reducing over headcount, then the resistance is really high. As humans, we tend to pick these intentions up really, really quickly.
Quickly,
And
right?
that's something that has stayed with me, because if you approach all of these productivity processes from the point of view of reducing headcount, or only solely from the purpose of reducing overhead cost, the resistance that you will find for these initiatives is much higher. Whereas if you approach this from a perspective of, how can we make the livelihood of everyone better, and keep that as your primary objective. Of course, I mean, everything else that comes is a benefit, is a side effect, but not the main effect that you're going after. Change management becomes that much more easier. Sorry, you were talking about the legal ramification from a.
Yes. So Mukesh, what I'll do is I'll come to the legal in a bit. I will continue the thread that you have picked up. And there is also a question from Srinivas on how do you handle the people's resistance to us monitoring the time so
Yeah.
closely in canteen, restroom, etc. So what you have said, also, extends into this question. Now, in my experience, what we did was we never told them that why were you there for, let's say, 70 minutes instead of 60 minutes or whatever in the canteen, and why did you go 10 times to the restroom and wasted, let's say, 5 minutes per visit. You wasted this much time. We never, ever came out with a report saying this is the time you are spending there and you need to cut it down. What we would instead do is that the canteen time you are aware, right? And the restroom time also you are aware. You have that data. But when a machine would fail and production would go down for that day, we would go back to him and say, hey, today your productivity has not been good. What was the reasons you think you have reduced the productivity, and how do you think you can improve it? He would give you reasons that he thought were legitimate, but he would never tell you that, I was after canteen I went for a quick nap in the garden. But when this discussion was happening, if we would bring out that data and say that, hey, I think you were not near the machine for from 1 o'clock to 2 o'clock. Uh, so I believe if you were here, this productivity downturn would not have happened. The machine would not have failed, or whatever the case might be. And therefore, please ensure that you are near the machine, you are attentive, and you are focusing on the production. And also, we started putting in incentives to say if you have produced a certain level plus. So if you were supposed to produce, let's say, 100 pieces and you've done 105, you are going to get an incentive. This is how we, sort of gently pushed the people without challenging them, without threatening them, into accepting and improving their whole piece, which is where, the question of what is in it for me started coming in. He was seeing that if he was producing more, he was taking home more, and if he was using more technology, he was going home early, spending time with his family. So that is the piece I believe most of our organizations miss out on. We put in a technology, and then we think that it is going to get adopted automatically. That normally does not happen.
So if I may just add one more point here, Vipin. We talk about preventive maintenance of our assets in terms of machines, in terms of all the other physical tangible assets. The same kind of maintenance is also required for humans, which we tend to forget, because our bodies are probably the biggest assets that we have in a manufacturing kind of an environment. And that kind of ties into what Srini has also asked in terms of reliability of sensors on the body and the functions other than geofence and all, right? Oh, so Srini is saying audio is lost. I do not know what happened. You're able to hear me, right, Vipin?
Yeah, I can hear you. Yes.
Okay. So maybe both put together, reliability of sensors on body uh, other than geofence, and also how can all of this technology enable us to also make enough rest and allow the human body to kind of recuperate. I know it's not something that everyone thinks about when someone thinks about Industry 4.0, but it just came for me when you're talking about maintenance and all of that. So if you can, of course, that's.
Yeah.
And then Gaurav is also asking about approximation in terms of budgets required for implementation.
So let me start with budget, which will also flow me into the question that you are asking for, Mukesh. Right. So the budget can be anything, but my experience and recommendation would be that you start small, do an experiment, get people to understand what you're trying to do, what your intentions are, and therefore that change management part starts, right? So I started very, very small, did just one single line of manufacturing, and people started seeing the benefits of this thing, and therefore the resistance to do it, roll it out across the whole manufacturing facility. In this case, we were doing it at 5 locations, global as well, so Dammam and US as well. They already had got a feedback from their people to say this is a good thing and it is going to benefit us. So we started with a very small budget, and then gradually rolled it out, and therefore ultimately the people who were approving the budget were also happy that there were certain ROIs that they were getting. There is a return that they are going to get on the money they are spending, and the people were happy that they are also benefited out of this technology. The moment to a promoter or an investor you show that his money is going to get a return, his money is going to come back to him with a certain multiple, they are very willing and they are very happy to you know give you that money. Second part of this answer is that in today's times it is imperative, whether you like it or not, it is imperative that you invest certain amount of money in these kind of activities if you need to stay competitive, if you need to stay in that in the market that you are in. So this is where the maintenance piece that you are talking about comes into play. When we did that small pilot, and sort of people were able to go home in time rather than spend 12 hours on the shop floor, then go home and get ready to come back maybe in another 8 hours time. So get 4 5 hours of sleep, eat food, and then don't spend time with family and come back, which is where the wear and tear of the human body starts becoming higher, especially the mindset part of it, right? Because you're now under tremendous amount of stress. This pilot proved that they were going now home in 8 hours rather than 12 hours, and therefore they were able to take care of their health, etc. properly. When you spend more time with your family, there is stress reduction starts, although not tangible, but that the productivity improves because of these things. So that is my answer to this thing. Or there is another question on how reliable are sensors on the body in functions other than geofencing. So we have found these sensors to be very very effective. There is a certain range within which they work. So the placement of the readers need to be very very efficiently designed, so that you don't go overboard in investing in the readers, and you also don't lose out on sensing at the right points.
So did you also address the question around the cost or the budgets? Because I think I might have missed that.
Budgets I did.
Okay.
Budgets I did in the sense that you start small, you deliver a pilot, see that there is an ROI. So there are two people watching that ROI. One is the investor, your promoters or the people who are investing in this thing, and the other ones are people who are ultimately going to use this technology, because they always have this question that we discussed: what is in it for me? So with that pilot, with that small investment, you are able to convince both the investors as well as the users that there is value in it, and then only you sort of roll out to the other pieces. Um, if we are to sort of give the number terms of budget, that would be difficult because it will vary from use case to use case. But you can start with a very very small budget, do a small pilot, and get the results for everybody to see.
That's also something that I have seen in multiple organizations. In fact, I was having a conversation with Manish Choksi as part of the Indus Thought Leader series, and I asked him a similar question in terms of how do you justify ROI for some of these technology initiatives, and his answer was also very similar to what you said. ROI and budget is very subjective. If you were given two options, one was to invest a crore rupees and get back 5 crores in 5 years, or invest the same 1 crore and get back 2.5 crores, let's say, in 1 year. Which one would you prefer? Of course, logically, the CFO will prefer the second option because it's faster, a return on investment, and of course, that can be reinvested and got like that. So it is not the quantum of money which is important; it is what impact it has on the business that is important. And also, the scale determines the budget. How big is your project? How small is your project? How many different scenarios do you want to enable? One of the advices that he had was that pick one which has the highest impact on both the stakeholders that you mentioned, just the user as well as the investor, and do it well, do it really well, so that your credibility is built, saying that this person, if they are actually talking about something, they are able to, number one, deliver, and number two, their judgment in terms of the value that you create as part of the project planning is right. So once you build that credibility, it becomes incredibly easy for you to build a business case or find budgets for your next activity. And if you pick the next best and the most impactful activity and deliver on that, the next one becomes that much more easier. Same way, every step of the ladder, you pick the most impactful activity, both from a user perspective as well as from an investor perspective, and deliver that one thing really well. And over a period of time, you'll find that you don't have to work hard for budgets or to prove ROI at all.
True. So I would like
yeah.
Sorry, I would like to invite everybody else to join this conversation. Ask, you can open up your mics and talk about your own feedback, your own experiences, and whatever else you are trying to do right now. And if there are any, guidelines, your own experiences, happy to learn from them as well. Sorry, Mukesh, you were saying something.
Sorry?
You were saying something, Mukesh.
No, I'm not. I was not saying it. Sorry. I'm just waiting for the others to kind of, pick up the baton that you passed.
Yeah, hi everyone. Myself Gaurav. I'm from Sonalika Group, leading the SAP technical team. There are a few questions that we are looking for the Industry 4.0 implementation at our province. It is at very initial stage, I can say. Discussions have been started. So according to you, what is the best strategy to go for it? And how we can choose that right platform for our environment?
So before we come to the platform piece that you're talking about, I would like to ask you a question.
Yes.
Where are you starting? What is it that you want Industry 4.0 to start, and then what is the path that you are going to be taking?
Basically, we're just you can say the extended of preventive maintenance, the machine breakdowns, workers, and all these things. Like yes.
Okay, so see, the reason why I asked you this question is that if you start from anywhere other than the center, and what is the center for a organization like yours, which is into manufacturing, is the manufacturing facility itself. If you start anywhere other than that, you are going to falter, and there you will face challenges in extending or expanding or moving out. So you have started at the right place, in my experience. Second one is, how do you find out the right platform to do this? Now, platforms are available plenty. There are hyperscalers, there is SAP. There are a lot of people who are giving you that platform to handle this. Now, you need to identify what are the outcomes that you need, right? So again, I will draw on to my own experience to tell you how I would have gone with this thing. So let's say because you are into manufacturing, you might want to understand the CNC machines. You might want to target just the CNC machines first, and find out when they are going to fail, predict that failure, the life of the machine, etc. Right? That could be the starting point. Identify 2 or 3 of them and say that for these 2 machines which are very critical for me, if these go down, my production stops. And then you identify that one first target could be that I am going to monitor the health of this machine. Second, I am going to find out if any part of this or any component of this machine is going to fail. Third, I am going to monitor the performance every single day and see if there are any spikes or there are any anomalies that are generated when doing a certain kind of machining or handling a certain kind of material, handling a certain kind of process. Right? So let's say we start with these 3, and then your analysis for the platform would be, who are these people who can give me all of this, right? And then you would need 2 things. One is the technology part of it. Second is an inbuilt capability to understand what is happening. right? So when you feed the data, any platform will be able to give you a graph that you want, or an output that you want, or run an algorithm that you want. But is the platform also bringing in its own intelligence, so that you don't need to give everything? You are starting at a certain level, so not starting at 0, but say starting at 25. That is another piece that I believe that you should look at, and then see whether the platform is otherwise, fulfilling your requirements um, uh, to get to those 3 goals that you had envisaged.
How SAP can help us if we
Okay.
engage with them?
Yeah, sure. So I do a lot of this kind of a work with our customers. In your case, with M&M, we have done a similar work. We went into predictive quality as well about 2 years ago. So what we do is we will come in, uh, talk to you about what is the data available. So you will share with us whatever data is available for these focused. And I'm going to continue with this CNC example. So for this, what are the data available? And there are 3 types of data that we need. One is the process data. Second one is the machine data. So today's CNCs have the capability to hold a lot of data. Can I get an access to that data? Second is what data is available. And then we have our own platform called the PAI, Predictive Asset Intelligence, which we sort of ingest that data into that platform and show you certain things that are happening on the historical data, where we can tell you that this machine would have failed at this particular time, because it is in the graph, it is showing that it exceeded the upper or the lower limit, which will help you visualize how these things are going to work and whether this actually happened in the past or not, right? So you are not just validating the platform, you're also validating your data, you're also validating the work that the machine is doing, right? So therefore, then you can get onto a good start to say, I have validated the history, back testing has been done. Now let us start giving it new data. And this predictive asset insights, PAI as we call it, will start throwing live alerts to you. Will start telling you that there is a challenge that you might face, machine is going to fail, etc., whatever the case might be.
Absolutely, you are on to the spot. I will be in touch with you. I would like to be
Sure.
in touch with you
Sure.
because we are now. I'm leading this project overall.
Okay.
I can say from
Great.
Sonalika Group.
Sure. Happy to connect with you and support you in this journey.
Thank you.
Anyone who's already on the journey, who has already implemented some aspects of Industry 4.0 or 4.0 in your organizations already? And if you can share what results have you already seen and what next for you guys? So maybe we've not done a round of introduction, or I'm pretty sure that we've not done any um, networking that I wanted to do as part of these series. So if it is okay with everyone, can I ask you to each unmute yourself and just give us the name of your company that you work for, what is your role, and maybe 1 or 2 sentences in terms of what Industry 4.0 means for you. I mean, either for your organization. If you've done something, what have you done? If you're thinking about something, what are you thinking about? If you can go alphabetically, if that makes sense. Arun Paliwal, would you like to quickly unmute yourself and introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi Mukesh. This is Arun Paliwal from Jaideep Ispat and Alloys Limited. So we are basically based out in MP, Indore. Recently, we have done the SAP S/4HANA migration, and currently we are doing the base stabilization of our core modules. Then probably we will think of this IoT and cloud computing other stuff. So because prior to doing that, I have to also educate myself like what are the things which I need to understand the business use case so that we can get the promoter interest also in line with us and get the benefit, because we have, for everything we have to do the cost benefit analysis, like what we are incurring and what we are getting out of it. So in that terms, like from this session, got so many things, so many pointers, like what are the areas, like EHS, environment, health and safety, and other things. So many things came to know about it today. Thank you.
Super.
Thank you for this session.
Thank you so much, Arun, for your kind words. And at any point in time, if you think that we can support you in any which ways, just drop a note, and you can ping me anytime you want, and we can have a conversation as well.
Sure. Thank you.
Thank you. Dharmendra Goel, would you like to quickly introduce yourself? Okay. So looks like people are camera and mic shy. Anyway, so if there are no further questions, I think it's okay. I do not want to put anyone on the spot. I can stay on for the next 5 minutes or so. If someone wants to unmute yourself and have a conversation between me and Bipin, you can stay on and we can have a conversation as well. Otherwise, thank you for your time. Thanks for joining us. At the end of all the 5 sessions, we will be sending out an email with a link to all the recordings. In case you would like to either watch them again or share it with someone in your team, please feel free to do so. Thank you so much. So Vipin, let's just stay on for a couple of minutes. So just in case for 5 minutes more, in case anyone wants to have a conversation with us. Otherwise, you can disconnect. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Can I have your email address?
Yes, I will share it with you. I will put it in
I
the
will
chat.
connect you. Vipin, I will connect you on email with Gaurav.
Yeah.
No problem.
Yeah, sure.
So anybody who is still on the call, I am assuming that you want to have a conversation with us. So please do unmute yourself and let's have a conversation.
It is done from my side. Mukesh.
Okay, Gauravji, thank you so much. You can drop off, no problem.
Yeah,
There are no
thank
further
you.
questions. Thank you. Take care.
Thank you, Mukesh. Thanks.
Thank you. Bye. Rajiv, Satya, Sushant, would you like to unmute yourself and have a conversation? I will stop the recording.